Hey guys, from our last tutorial we went over just some basics of variables, strings, quotes, and a little bit on arrays, and we made a form. In this one it's going to be a little more fun and useful. We're going to work on functions and includes. So just start with the index.php file and start your PHP tags. And creating a function is basically to reuse something over and over. So here's a very simple example. Let's say we wanted to echo 1. Okay. If we wanted to repeat this 5 times, you could do that. Now, with a function, you started out with the word function and you give it a name. So for example, let's just call this make numbers. Okay. And then the function name after that, you put these little I forgot what they're called. Anyways, after that you do the little curly braces, and everything within the function is inside these two curly braces. You can see they're highlighted now. So let's make some numbers. We'll just do echo 1.br. I'm just adding this to make a new line. Okay, and you'll notice this does nothing. So what we do is we type make numbers, and it will make 1. Now you could just make numbers over and over and over, or you could even do a loop with a function, but I'm not going to cover loops just yet. So let's say you want you have a bunch of pages and you want to include a bunch of functions. First thing I do is I'd create a new file, and I would call it functions.php. Okay, and we would take this function here and we would paste it into here. Okay, now you're going to notice this has a problem because it doesn't know anything about the function. So you can do include functions.php, and that gives us access to this file and the function within it. And there it is, it echoes 1. Instead of include, you can also do require once, which is what I use most of the time. Basically it means that it can only be included one time. This is probably the safest bet to avoid conflict, because if you do include functions twice on accident, it's thinking that you're trying to redeclare this function twice. So I would just use require once. So since we have this, what if we wanted to make a number and add 5 to it? Okay. The way we pass arguments inside of a function is we set it up here between these little parentheses, and you just give it a variable name, and let's just call it number. Okay, make numbers number. This doesn't do anything right now, so let's just say echo number, just to make it simple at first. Now you'll notice right here it says make numbers. If we leave it blank, it's going to say missing an argument, because we have an argument right here. So in make numbers, just put the number 6, and it returns 6. Easy enough. You can add the number like this. Let's say number plus 5, and that gives us 11. Now what if we want a default value so that when there's nothing in here, it'll still print something. You can do number equals 0. So if nothing's set, it's going to default to 0, and it should output 5. Now there's going to be instances when you don't want to echo something out, and what you can do is return. So we can do return number. Now this is a little bit different because when you return something, you can only do it one time in a function, and when we call this, let's just say 5, it's going to do nothing. It actually did do something in the background, but we just can't see it. So if you're monkeying with return values, you can do echo make numbers. It'll echo it. Or what you'll often do a lot is say assign it to a variable. So now we have this function assigned to value, and whatever this returns right here, it's going to be stored in value. So you can do echo value, and it equals 10 again. You can still play with it and do echo value plus 5. Pretty cool. Now with functions, there are some things to be aware of. That there are reserved keywords like function list. That's actually a function in PHP, so you can't use that. Most of the time you'll be pretty good if you just use camel case like this, make something. So really, what good is a function on a bigger scope? It might be kind of hard to give you an example, and I'll try. So let's imagine we have an index page, which is this one, a people page, an about page, and the company page. What we do is we just require once inside of each of these pages, and then we have all these functions in this file available to those pages. So rather than having to redefine everything, we can just reuse them inside a bunch of pages. There's a lot more to functions than just making numbers. Let's see, for example, a little dice roller, okay? Function roll. Okay, here we have this. Let's allow the user to set how many dices are on the face of the dice. So put a variable in their faces, and by default it's going to equal 6, okay? Unless they set it. So let's get rid of this, and we'll say roll, okay? And let's see, since there's, well, I don't know much about dices. I guess they go above the number 6, but let's just pretend rand 1, 2, 6. So there's we'll echo a random number 1 to 6, okay? And we get 5, 4, 3, 2, okay? Now let's implement faces inside the random number. Now this will roll a random number 1 through 6 if nothing's defined. If something is defined, like 24, it will roll a random number 1 to 24, as you can see. Well, I think that's a pretty decent start on some functions and includes. Play around with that a little bit, and I'll make another tutorial in a little bit.